What if I told you that one little-known NBA rule has quietly changed championships, altered careers, and completely transformed the way basketball is played today? A rule so powerful that most fans barely notice it, yet coaches spend countless hours designing strategies around it. Every season, players, analysts, and even referees debate its impact, but few people truly understand how much it influences the outcome of games. Tonight, we're uncovering the NBA's secret rule that changes everything, and once you understand it, you'll never watch basketball the same way again. Welcome back to HoopNexis, the channel where we dive deep into the stories, secrets, and hidden truths behind the game of basketball. Today, we're exploring one of the most influential rules in NBA history, a rule that fundamentally changed how offenses attack, how defenses respond, and how modern superstars dominate the court. While casual fans focus on highlight dunks and game-winning shots, this rule operates behind the scenes, shaping every possession in ways most people never realize. To understand why this rule matters so much, we need to travel back in time. For decades, NBA defenses were allowed to play in a very different way. Teams could use physical tactics and defensive structures that would look strange by today's standards. Defenders could camp near dominant scorers, clog driving lanes, and make life incredibly difficult for offensive stars. Back then, the game was slower, more physical, and often less efficient. Star players faced constant double teams before even touching the basketball. Defenses packed the paint, forcing offenses into difficult mid-range shots and low-percentage opportunities. Coaches built entire systems around limiting one superstar and daring everyone else to beat them. Then came one of the most significant rule adjustments in league history, the defensive 3-second rule. At first glance, it sounds simple. A defender cannot remain in the paint for more than 3 seconds unless actively guarding an opponent. If they stay too long without engaging an offensive player, it's a violation. The penalty? A technical free throw and possession retained by the offense. Simple rule. Massive consequences. Before this change, defenders could essentially park themselves near the basket indefinitely. Imagine having a 7-foot shot blocker standing directly under the rim every possession. Driving to the basket became far more difficult because attackers constantly faced an extra defender waiting to challenge them. The NBA wanted something different. League officials believed fans preferred fast-paced offense, exciting drives, and creative scoring opportunities. The defensive 3-second rule was designed to open the floor and encourage more action. What happened next completely transformed basketball. Suddenly, dominant interior defenders had to move. They could no longer stand in one spot protecting the basket all game. Instead, they needed better timing, quicker reactions, and smarter positioning. Defensive specialists were forced to evolve. At the same time, offensive players gained more freedom to attack. Guards could penetrate deeper into the paint. Wings could slash toward the basket with fewer obstacles. Teams began emphasizing spacing, movement, and shooting. The ripple effects spread throughout the league. Coaches started redesigning offensive systems. Instead of crowding players together, they stretched the floor. Shooters moved toward the corners. Big men stepped away from the basket. Every inch of extra space became valuable. This eventually led to the modern NBA we know today. Think about stars like Stephen Curry. His shooting gravity creates enormous spacing. Defenders cannot simply sit in the paint waiting for him to attack because they must respect shooters around the perimeter. The defensive 3-second rule helps create those driving lanes and open looks that modern offenses depend upon. The same applies to players like LeBron James during his prime. His incredible ability to drive toward the basket became even more dangerous in a league where defenders could not permanently camp near the rim. But here's where things become fascinating. The rule doesn't just help offense. It also creates strategic challenges for defenses that separate great teams from average ones. Elite defensive teams learned how to dance around the rule. Centers hover near the paint, step out briefly, then return at exactly the right moment. Watch closely during NBA games and you'll notice defenders constantly moving their feet, carefully managing the 3-second count while still protecting the basket. This requires extraordinary awareness. Players must know where offensive threats are positioned. They must understand referee tendencies. They must communicate with teammates. One small mistake can lead to an easy free throw and extra possession for the opposing team. The smartest defenders turn this limitation into an advantage. Take legendary defensive players such as Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and later Draymond Green. They mastered positioning. Instead of relying solely on size, they used anticipation. They predicted where plays would develop before they happened. That intelligence allowed them to remain effective despite restrictions that might have crippled less disciplined defenders. The rule also accelerated another major trend: positionless basketball. Years ago, teams often relied on traditional centers who rarely left the paint. As spacing increased and defensive responsibilities expanded, big men needed new skills. They had to switch onto guards, defend multiple positions, and move quickly across the floor. Players who couldn't adapt gradually disappeared from the league. Meanwhile, versatile defenders became more valuable than ever. A player capable of guarding centers one possession and point guards the next suddenly became a massive asset. This shift helped create the modern NBA style where flexibility often matters more than traditional positions. Analytics further amplified the rule's impact. As teams studied data, they discovered that shots at the rim and three-pointers generated the highest efficiency. Since the defensive 3-second rule opened driving lanes and encouraged spacing, offenses increasingly focused on these valuable shot types. The result was a basketball revolution. Three-point attempts exploded. Pace increased. Scoring averages climbed. Entire franchises rebuilt their philosophies around maximizing space and efficiency. What began as a relatively small rule adjustment ultimately influenced almost every aspect of the game. Even player development changed. Young athletes growing up today train differently because of the environment